Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
Well, hello, Nest listeners. Geez, talk about an opportune time for a podcast. I think I said on Twitter, Drew Jones, that it's like Groundhog Day. This is Groundhog Day with a difference. It's like the point in the movie where it starts to get really bad for Bill Murray. It's like, all right, we've had a bit of like fun with Groundhog Day, and he's like getting in the rhythm, and now it's like taking that turn for the worse. And you're like, which way is it going to go? It feels like we're at that point right now in the West Coast Eagles Groundhog Day of shitness in 2023.
Yeah, it's like when he gets in the bath and he puts the toaster on. Unfortunately, and as grim as that is, not making light of it, but that's where we're at right now. So we've only won 5 of our last 45 games, Garby. It's getting a bit ridiculous, but, it was a lot easier to turn up and do the podcast when we were, being competitive and there were positive things to talk about. So happy birthday. West Coast served you up a genuine shit sandwich, though, for your 40th.
Quite funny. So, when you commentate, the fixtures come out and you analyse every game. It's not even about commentary. Like, we all do it, right, when it comes to our team. The fixtures come out and we look at the games on the certain dates and when are we playing there, when are we playing here. And if you're someone who has a birthday in the season, and I'm one of them, everyone looks to see if there's a game on their birthday or is there one around, can I make something out of it? All those sorts of things we look at, right? So for me this year, it's my 40th birthday on Saturday, and I'll find out the Eagles are playing the Swans on my 40th birthday in Sydney, which means I'm commentating the game. And I'm like, that's unbelievable. Like, the perfect synergy, 10-year-old me, if I told him that, how happy would he have been that you're commentating the Eagles nationally on your 40th birthday and so on. And after all of that, they lose by the heaviest margin in their history, and not just lose, but like obliterate that margin by some 5 goals. So talk about a way to mark the occasion.
Yeah, I mean, as if we needed any more slaps in the face. I reckon that story right there, you couldn't have a West Coast fan in the country who'd have something more just abominable that's happened to them, even when you mix in the 171 points. So I've got to be honest, I haven't watched the second half. So I was watching the game on a slight delay. I had my day's routine set because of I was moving. Watched the game. I started watching slightly late, stayed off the phone, and then it got like 8 goals to 1 or whatever, and I fast forwarded a little bit and then caught up. And I was like, this is not going super well, but I'm sure they'll take the foot off the accelerator at some stage. And then we got a couple of goals back. And anyway, halftime, I went to get something to eat, and I had it recording, and I was determined not to check. And I just kept getting messages from people, people were texting me going, "Are you okay? Welfare check, thoughts and prayers." And I was like, geez, what's going on? Either Oscar Allen's done his ACL or we're getting absolutely hammered, because they're the 2 worst things that could happen. But you know what I've really noticed, Garby, and maybe other fans of other teams have gone through this before, it's actually now embarrassing to go for the Eagles. So I work in we both work in offices where sport is, at the forefront. Because you're in Sydney, I feel like you might be shielded slightly, but everyone in the office knows I'm a West Coast fan. Like, I've worked in this office for 8 years.
Yeah.
Celebrated the highs, and then listening to people, like, I've noticed it more than ever, eavesdropping on people at games of footy or in the office talking about West Coast, and we are just a genuine laughing stock. We are the brunt of every joke. We are just genuinely disgusting. We're terrible.
Yeah. So you go through waves of it, right, in terms of how much you respond to things. And then, like, I'm sure everyone listening is in the same boat. Like, you cop it from fans and you're quick to reply, we got 4 premierships, and how many years have we been in the finals, and how many members do we have, and what about your club and all that. And I remember getting in an argument with an Essendon fan lately who was recently, who was giving it to me about the Eagles. I'm like, how the hell can you talk, mate? Like, seriously, we won 2 flags since you last won a final, like back in your box. And then it gets to the stage on Saturday where you're like, no, there's nothing that can be said anymore. Like, we just need to completely cop our whack. And like, yeah, you might say I'm shielded here in Sydney. Well, my father-in-law's a massive Swans fan, and I've tried to tell him all the time about the Eagles' history and all that. And that's just like the point where, no, we actually can't say anything anymore. Like, everyone knows that, and it's fine, but we actually don't have a defence at the moment. The players are certainly performing without any defence right now. You know, they've dropped their bundle, and it's like, well, we're not going to start to protect ourselves and get defensive while they're playing like that every second week, back-to-back weeks, if you look at our last 2 games. So, yeah, I'm at that point right now where it's like the spirit is gone, and it's up to the players to try and generate some spirit back amongst the fan base right now, because, you know, I was kind of looking forward to Sunday and seeing a response against St Kilda, but then you see Elliot Yeo out for another month and other players out, and McGovern's not back yet, and it just, any hope of some sort of performance gets washed away. And then, you know, we'll get onto it in more detail, but I don't know, the press conferences, I don't mind Luke Shuey's, but Simo's didn't do much for me. You know, the chairman's letter after the game, did that do much for you? Has any of the response so far from the club, and we all know that the main one that was expected was Adam Simpson to be sacked, but has anything been done in the last couple of days since that abomination against the Swans that we will talk about in some detail, but not too much for everyone's sanity? Has anything stirred anything in you, Drew, that you're looking forward to Sunday at all?
Yeah, so I've actually reported on West Coast more in the last sort of 3 or 4 days than I have, you know, for the duration of my stay interstate, really. Just due to some illness in our office, I've been sort of carrying a fairly heavy load. And so I've done the Luke Shuey press conference and Adam Simpson yesterday. I've interviewed Guy McKenna. I've spoken to Nick Del Santo about the Eagles. I'm speaking to Will Schofield about it tonight. So I feel like I'm pretty ensconced in the response. I did enjoy Luke Shuey's press conference, and I think, to be fair to everyone else, I think Luke was in the best position to be able to offer something that we wanted to hear, because he was like, yeah, it's the players. We take responsibility. We need to do this. We need to do X, Y, Z. And, you know, he did look like, it looked like he was distressed. It looked like it was hurting him, you know, like he showed compassion and he showed that it meant something to him. And that meant something to me, you know, to see that it was hurting him, you know, made me feel like, well, at least he understands what's going on. And I mean, no one's trying harder. Certainly no one is trying harder than Luke Shuey right now. Like the last
he was our best player. Best player on Saturday for sure.
No doubt. You can actually see and you can even see his frustration at times, just sort of boiling over. He's probably done well to keep it in check at times. But, you know, he fronted up and took the questions, which was good. I think it's hard for Simo in that situation to be too down in the dumps. I think someone even asked him about the despair of the fan base, and he was like, well, we just can't get caught up in that. You know, we just need to focus on the job at hand. I think he could have been 5% a bit more almost apologetic.
Yes. See, I thought he was just a little bit too defensive. And he was, and look, maybe the difference with him is he's done a press conference after the game already where he was apologetic. So he's got that little bit out of the way. But I was looking forward to his press conference on Tuesday, and I thought he was just a little bit too prickly and a little bit too defensive. And I thought some of the answers, you know, were like, well, you know, we're talking to our fans and we're not talking to you, the journo. And you know, he's been asked a couple of questions that are not easy to ask, but we've been there asking someone about their job. You know, unless you're a bit of a sicko, no journalist actually enjoys doing that. But it needs to be asked. And whoever did do it, they asked the right question because it's certainly timely. And there was a little bit of, you know, bite back at it and, you know, all the questions coming from you, that sort of little response, that little dig. And I understand that it can't be easy to talk about that, and we feel for him. But, yeah, the defensiveness, considering the magnitude of the situation, just didn't quite sit right with me. And, look, he did say that he accepts the criticism and he understands where the fans are coming from, but he believes he's the right person for the job. And that's fine. You know, we want the coach to believe that. It's whether we as fans or whether the players believe that right now. And look, the overwhelming sentiment, let's be honest, Drew, is that, no, that's not the case. Like, you know, and we hope that changes. It'd be great. But let's be honest, the majority of fans think that Adam Simpson should go. And a lot of people thought he would have gone after the weekend. Such was, you know, the level of defeat and the other defeats that have come before it this season and last. And the players don't seem to be playing for him right now. And they don't seem to be stirred by his words and his motivation at all. That is just the cold, hard fact, as sad as it is to say.
Yeah, so it was a coaching disaster on Saturday. But that must be one of Adam Simpson's worst days as West Coast coach. The team were not prepared for that game. They weren't prepared to defend the Swans. But I don't know how this could happen. And this is why I texted you on Saturday and we both said that we think this might be the end for Adam Simpson, is because I just couldn't understand how we had turned up to a game against the Swans with almost our full-strength midfield and we were getting, and they were just walking the ball out of the front of the stoppage. And I was like, isn't this the one area where, Garby, where we're supposed to be able to hold our own? Like Bailey Williams is playing decent footy. Tom Hickey's not a world beater, and we're supposed to have these gun midfielders, and we were getting belted at stoppage, and that was just throwing our back six completely under the bus. And I just, like, Brady Hoff's trying to play an Isaac Heaney, and I'm like, but we can't win a clearance. And that really got me because I was like, that's coaching. Like you can spend time coming up with game plans, talking to the midfield coach, implementing stoppage plans to actually mitigate against this. Like let's at least break even. And then defensively from there, just the structure just completely collapsed. And it was like we were witches' hats. Like literally that's the first time where I've gone, okay, we actually are. Like we're just getting run past. We don't know what we're doing. And it was just calamitous. And that's when you're like, okay, there's not trying and there's I don't know what I'm doing. And that's on the coach.
So, and the Swans are the worst, I think just about the worst possible team to come up against right now in that situation because they are hugely talented, hugely damaging, but at the same time need to get their season back on track. So they needed the percentage boost, right? They needed the win. Like people are saying Brisbane away, and it may be another atrocity, but, you know, Brisbane, they're cruising. They know they can beat us with their eyes closed, right, and win by 10 goals. Whereas Sydney were like, no, we need to improve our percentage. We need to get some confidence up. So it was the worst possible team to face, and we completely gave up. Like anyone who says the team did not give up, you know, I don't blame the youngsters one bit because they're trying and it's not on them. And Luke Shuey tried hard, and I liked Elijah Hewitt's game, and Elliot Yeo, you know, fought despite playing with an injury. You know, and Tim Kelly got a lot of the ball, but, you know, Tim Kelly also put in some meek efforts, really meek efforts. We've sung his praises all season. He's probably leading our best and fairest, but there were some of the most half-hearted tackles that he put on. You know, Dom Sheed didn't want to be out there. Andrew Gaff shouldn't be out there. Like, I'm sorry, club legend. We all know that, you know, absolute champion. But can you explain this to me, Drewy? What is the benefit in playing Andrew Gaff right now, who is clearly not up to AFL standard? And I admire him for ploughing on. I actually do. We've said this. You know, he's fighting on through tough times for the club with his players who aren't available, and he's probably got injuries. But how are you dropping Xavier O'Neill, who might have a ceiling on his talents, and playing Andrew Gaff when he clearly can't move at AFL standard right now? I don't see how that's possible. Like, at least O'Neill can run and chase, and he's got some speed in his legs. And, he might not be the best kick, and he might not be on the list next season. But surely you play the youngster now and give him a run and see where it lands up, rather than playing Andrew Gaff, who is every single person who watches footy can see he just cannot contribute anymore at AFL level.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if this is a rhetorical question or not, but I'll try to answer it. He's in the team because he's a senior player and he's a favourite of Adam Simpson. And we've got 24 or 25 players available. And so obviously Simo sees the value in having a senior player in the side, despite the fact that he can't actually properly contribute. But, I mean, he's not alone. You know, like if we're singling one out, we can single out, almost 18 players. And there's various reasons for the fact that they're not up to standard or they're not ready or they're not fit enough, Like there's talk about Jamie Cripps playing this week. Like, didn't he break his ankle?
Yeah.
He's got to have a run in the twos, but they're thinking about potentially playing him.
Well, I mean, yeah, they don't really have much of a choice. I mean, I got caught up on gaff there, but, Jack Darling stopped trying. He sort of kicked a couple of goals, but he just stopped going at it. Liam Duggan, who's been fantastic for us, you could see it got too hard for him, and you can almost understand that. Jaden Hunt went missing, an experienced player. He was sort of down tools as well. There were so many of them in that bracket. Tom Barras, showed his frustrations late and started fighting, and he went off a few times, so it was tough for him. But I'm not sure his attitude's been great all season long. It seemed too hard for him on occasion. There's so many of those senior players outside of a couple who just haven't been consistent with their efforts, and then that flows onto the young players, and it becomes an utter catastrophe.
Yeah, and that's the worry, isn't it? You want the young boys to be able to look up and see the senior guys are still having a dip and are still adhering to team structures and doing all the right things. If they don't see it happening, Jimby seems to be, more committed and more capable of fighting out games than some of the senior guys, which is obviously a feather in his cap. I can sense the frustration in your voice, Garby. So back to Saturday night. Did you think come Tuesday that Simo would still be our coach?
No. I thought the loss was so severe that something had to give.
171-point loss. It's unheard of. Coaches don't survive that.
They don't survive it. And
only at West Coast.
Yeah, and look, maybe the financial implications of the contract that has to be paid out and then the tax on top of the soft cap breach is an issue. Maybe it is, and maybe the club's just going yes, he should be sacked right now, but look what it's going to cost, and bringing an interim coach in for the rest of the season, what's the point? Because we're not going to get any better, so we might as well just see where it lands with him and see if he's a man who can help us through a rebuild. But the problem I've got with that, Drewy, is you've got to make a stand on what's acceptable for your club. And yes, the money impact might be severe, but we all know the club's got plenty of it. And you need to sit there and go, it's not so much about, is it going to make a difference? Because we've all wrestled with that. Will it make a difference if Adam Simpson goes and Matty Knights is our interim coach for the rest of the season and then we look at our options? It's about saying, no, that is not acceptable and a price has to be paid. And unfortunately in sport, it's the coach. And yes, it's not all his fault, and there are so many factors, and some of you players have caused this, but it sends a message to those players that this is so unacceptable that this is what's happened. And you should feel guilty as well that we've come to this decision. And it sends that message to everyone that we're not going to accept it. But at the moment, the club is accepting it, and they have done for 18 months.
Yeah, we're the male married, we're a married couple. We're the male, and we're sitting on the dad chair, and we're fat, and we've got the TV on, watching some shit reality TV show. We're just off.
We're lazy.
Yeah, as a football club, that's where we are.
Complacent, lazy.
Yeah, I was wondering how I was going to feel when we recorded this, to be honest, because I did think that was it for Simpson on Saturday night. I didn't think that a coach could possibly survive that. And so I was mentally preparing myself for, I'm going to feel sad that Simo's gone because he's meant so much to us as a club.
Yeah, big time.
But maybe this is the right thing. Maybe this is a good thing. I watch what clubs have done this season with new coaches, and it's made their clubs and players and teams more vibrant. And vibrancy is a word that you would never, ever associate with West Coast right now. Maybe for about 15 minutes in round 2 against GWS, we were vibrant. And we blew them out of the park in the second quarter. But Something's got to give.
Like that is,
just can't be Adam Simpson a 2025 contract. $2 million in the hole.
No chance. And that is the sad part. Like there was vibrancy early in the year. Like North Melbourne went close against them when they were up and going, beat the Giants, would have beaten the Dockers, injuries set in. But and Adam Simpson might lean on that and say, look, we were looking good and it did look like the players were playing for me, and then the injuries hit. But you got to maintain it over the course of a season. And you cannot say that the players are motivated right now and enthused by what they're being told. And that's just a sad state of affairs, but the way it is, and there's far more to it than him. And when we love Adam Simpson, what he's done for the club, but sometimes, we've said it so many times, the voice just grows tired. And it's not just him, but it's obviously, Trevor Nisbet's been there for so long as well. And, I think as an Eagles fan, I worry about when Trevor Nisbet leaves, because he's been running that club for 30 years just about. And it's a bit of a scary thing to think what it's going to be like when he's not there anymore. But, sometimes you just got to make the changes. And the whole place has become complacent since 2018, since that flag. And
if it's going to happen,
the people at the top, unfortunately, have got to take the blame for that.
If it's going to happen with Nisbet, it's just got to be at the end of the season. He's got a year to go on his contract, but the change has to happen at some stage. The club has to move on, and there's going to be probably some growing pains with the new CEO. But, you may as well do it when you're at your lowest ebb. Iron out the kinks as you start to sort the rest of the club out. So I think now Adam Simpson will coach out the rest of the season, and then I think there's a good chance that once the season is over and we probably only win one game and getting annihilated, that he'll sit down with his family to think about what's best for him as a human being and his career. And I think that probably is it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he's on game-to-game proposition stuff now. But just reading Paul Fitzpatrick's report, the chairman, where he said, we still believe Adam Simpson's the man to lead us forward. But then the next paragraph was, but we will not tolerate performances like that, and we expect a response on Sunday. That said to me that if the Eagles lose by 10 goals or more at home to St Kilda on Sunday, or, a similar margin the week after against Brisbane, then a change will be made. That's the feeling I've got reading that statement.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we obviously he can't withstand another loss like the one at the SCG.
Yeah.
You know what? We actually don't have that many guys coming back either.
No.
It's not happening. I don't know why. Maybe I was deluding myself. I thought that the second half of the year we might sort of start to get a bit more competitive.
So did I. I thought we'd win a couple games.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Maybe North Melbourne at home. That's like the only one potentially.
I mean, we certainly should get a decent hiding this week from St Kilda.
Yeah, although they're not the most attacking team in the competition, so they're the kind of side that, seems more like the 40 to 50 point win, because they're not like the Swans who have got Goulden and Heaney and McInerney, all these blokes like running forward. They're more of a defensive team who just picks you off, right?
So you think if the Lions decide they want a piece of us and they give us a good solid hiding, you think that could be it?
Yeah, I think I think it's a situation now where if the team doesn't produce a really good performance, like an eye-catching one where, it's like a 2-goal margin against the Saints, or we knock them off by some complete miracle, something in the next 2-3 weeks. If there isn't anything like that, and we cop another defeat like we've copped against Adelaide, Hawthorn, Carlton and Sydney, then I think a change will be made. So I think he's like on game-to-game proposition right now, and he needs a massive performance to step away from the cliff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get that big performance and another big loss comes, I think it's push over the cliff stuff and a change is made. That's my feeling.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Perhaps I hadn't thought about it quite like that. I mean, if we come out and play well this weekend and then we get a 100-point loss against Brisbane, perhaps, you get some credits in the bank for the St Kilda performance. Okay, the team have shown a bit of fight. Simo's got something from them. This Brisbane trip was always going to be difficult.
Yeah.
There's ways where they can convince themselves that he's done enough to keep the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. My sense is that he's not coach next season.
No, I don't think so.
So
I think it would take, yeah, I don't think so. Let's step on to the next subject. Like, okay. Damien Hardwick's available. Like, should the Eagles be speaking to him right now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think that Damien Hardwick potentially could be a great fit at West Coast. But does he want to do this? Does he want to do this rebuild?
Yeah, well, that's the other option. And that's the other, factor. But money talks. Like, if the offer is $200,000 more than whatever, what Gold Coast can offer. If the Gold Coast is going okay into Stuart Dew, he might survive. So what are the other options for him? There might not be much.
I don't know.
Hawthorn are going nowhere with Sam Mitchell.
Yep.
North are going nowhere with Clarko when he comes back. Like, who are the other potential challenges? Maybe Gold Coast, but right now, Stuart Dew could make the finals. They're not going to sack him if that happens. And so it might just be the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm not sure there will be more than one job available at the end of the season, and that's assuming that Adam Simpson decides to step away. Yeah. So the Eagles potentially do have a bit of a head start to speak to Damien Hardwick. Is there a part of you that thinks it's inappropriate to speak to Damien Hardwick right now, given we have a premiership coach, fighting for his life and our season?
Not in the current predicament. No, I think it would be disrespectful for a Gold Coast when they're sort of tracking towards the finals to sound him out. But for us, no, I think it's just common sense.
I think it matters.
It's always a weird one. It's always a weird one because you want to be respectful to Adam Simpson and you don't want to rock the boat even more. But you got to play the ball as it lies. And as it stands right now, if the board has said it's game-to-game proposition stuff, well, then they've got to perhaps make or have those preliminary discussions.
The phrasing of it matters. It's like, we aren't sure what's going to happen with Adam Simpson. He may step away from this role. Do you have interest in, or would you have interest if the job opened up in taking on this project? It's not offering. You're not offering him the job.
No, the other option. I mean, Hardwick and Simpson, good friends from their time together at Hawthorn.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I don't know if there was huge crossover. Hardwick's been at Richmond a long time.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, look, we transgress, but yeah, there's one of the great coaches there who's come out in the last week and said he's hungry to get back into it. He just needed to step away for a little bit. Maybe the Eagles' job is, no one thought Clarko would take North and go through the rebuild, right? Everyone said, why would he do that? He'll go to a bigger club where he can have a crack at it. Why would he go through 5 years? Well, he did.
Yep.
So,
do we deserve the priority pick?
No. I hate the priority pick chat. It's a nonsense. I don't know why I don't even know why it exists in the AFL. Like, how much charity does this competition want to hand out? There is a draft and there is a salary cap. That is all you need. Why does a priority pick even exist? I'd be embarrassed if we got one as a fan.
It would be embarrassing. I just wonder, do the AFL find it embarrassing that West Coast are getting beaten by 171 points and that we've had some bad luck with injuries and some stuff's happened, like Dan Venables outside of our control. Do they look at that? Do they look at us and say, you're actually a liability? Because the teams that play West Coast twice next year, you're banking 2 10-goal wins right from the start. So do they say, here, have a second-round pick, you got to trade it, and we trade it for, Dev Robertson or Granger Barras or whatever, and we get a player in for that?
I don't mind that you have to trade it, and I don't mind the mitigating factor of if you've lost a certain number of games in 2 years and also lost and delisted a first round pick for whatever reason, or lost one due to injury. You can't just delist one because then clubs will just cut someone so they get another pick. If you've lost one like in a bettable situation, then you might qualify, right? That's a little bit different. And Venables has been a big loss. But I mean, it's just one player, but still it would have been a really important player. But yeah, maybe in that situation you weigh that up. But I just don't like the priority pick. I just think it's ridiculous. We've got an equal system as it is. The nonsense of charity in the AFL, I just hate it. It just really irritates me. I just don't think we need it. I think it takes away from the intensity of the competition so much. These handouts all the time to try and lift clubs up. Like, as a fan, you want to do it the organic way, don't you? Not being handed stuff all the time. And we don't need that. We made our own bed in many ways. So, no, I'm not for it. But, if there's other ways that it's done, then potentially. Now, I did have a little go. You might have, not a go, but I had a debate you might have seen on Twitter with Kane Corns about his comments on Harley Reid and him staying away from West Coast. Did you see his comments on that?
Yeah, I did. Yep. I did see that he came back to you.
He did come back to me. He didn't come back to me strong. And look, I like having debates and it wasn't offensive. And some people got stuck into Kane and I said, settle down. You know, we're having a constructive debate here. But that was taking it too far for mine. Like, you know, how many teams finish bottom and get the number one pick that are in a good state, Drewy? Like Nick Dacos was father-son and Hugo Hagen was next generation. Like you go through every single number one pick, the club's in a crisis more often than not, right? That's how it works. So, and we've got a pretty good record of turning our interstate players into long-term West Australians, never mind just Eagles, and kids from Vic Metro as well. And Harley Reid's from the country. I think he'd be fine if he came to West Coast and he'd probably love it. And it'd be a good place for him. So that was one thing that I thought was a little bit too far in terms of the commentary on us.
Yeah, he lives up north in Victoria. I'll tell you what, he wouldn't know himself if he moved to Western Australia and was living near Cottesloe. He would not know himself. So I mean, he'd have a great time coming over and playing for West Coast. And I just think, you know, Kane's sick for clicks, and so this is a clicky topic for him, as much as he denies that he wants those hits. So, and him and Damien Barrett just seem to have some sort of obsession with West Coast at the moment and bashing us. So I've sort of tuned out to that a little bit, and I've also tuned out to some of the Harley Reid chat because I just believe that we're going to trade the pick.
Well, I agree. But, you know, there's got to be the deal. Like, you know, the clubs might not be able to do a deal. And if you can't give us, I think it has to be 3 picks inside like 22 and 2 of those picks inside 10 for us to do a deal.
Yeah, it's got to be good. I can see GWS doing it.
Yeah.
I like the way McCartney operates, and I like what they did with Cadman, and if they want to, like, you know, they've looked at their history and gone, why have we brought in 6 first-round draft picks? Let's get the best guy and invest everything. You know, throw the kitchen sink at him. I like that from a GWS, you know, sort of strategic point of view, and potentially it might benefit us. So anyway, that's a discussion for down the track. We're on the clock here. Garby, what's your realistic expectation of Sunday?
I think around 50 points. I think we'll come out all guns blazing, send a message, and then it'll fade. And because the Saints aren't a team that kill you, it'll get out to 40, 50 they'll win by. That's my pick. You?
I hope to see a bit of heat in the game. Like, I want, even if we're giving away a few free kicks or whatever, I want to see us in the game. Let's physically be there. And hopefully the senior players seriously turn up and do something.
Yeah.
Lead the young guys. Hopefully we're in the game at half time. You know, you want to, you know, there's talk about the sort of the fans not turning up for the first quarter. Like, let's hope we put on a show early, keep the game interesting, and hopefully we can create a bit of a contest. They're not going to blow us out of the water, as you've said. They're a defensive side under Ross. So, yeah, let's hope there's a response, because if not, we're in all sorts.
Yeah, and let's get Xavier O'Neill and Zane True into the team, and they might butcher it, but at least they can run and chase, right? Get players like that in who can just have got a little bit of leg speed and a bit of youth about them, rather than Gaffey's got to have a rest. I'm sorry, he just does. It's enough. So I'd like to see a couple of changes like that, even though we are limited with what we can do. We did ask for people for questions, and we run out of time today, but maybe we'll do a Twitter Spaces late in the week or early in the week after the St Kilda game, Drewy, and we'll get to some of the questions as well.
I'm keen. I'm down. Yeah. Let's see Harry Barnett as well. I reckon.
Yeah,
let's get him in.
I was surprised Jack Williams played. Didn't do much, obviously. Got injured, but yeah, why not? Chuck him in. Be good to see him have a run.
Yeah, couldn't it? What if he clunks one early and gets the crowd up and about? You never know. Anyway, my expectations are low, so let's see. It's been emotional, to be honest. It's not an easy time to be a West Coast fan. So for everyone who's listening, we appreciate the support and hang in there.
I'm genuinely intrigued, and I'm not excited, but I'm intrigued to see how we start on Sunday. And then I expect it to fizzle out, but that's going to be a big watch across the competition, how West Coast start against the Saints.
People are going to be watching around the country.
Oh, yeah, big time.
It's it's got that sort of car crash, train off the track sort of feel to it. So,
will there be a big response potentially, and Eagles are up by 2 goals at halftime. There's that feeling to it as well. But Saints fans are worried. I got some Saints mates you're going to beat us. The media response, I'm we won't beat you. But that's what they're thinking at the moment because of all the commentary around the Eagles.
No, we can only hope. All right, Garby.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Drewy. See you, mate. Thanks all.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.